Composing your images for portraits, whether they be head and shoulders or full length or 3/4, has a huge bearing on the final result. I shoot mostly women, so these rules or guidelines are aimed at photographing women, but you can do a similar sort of thing when you're photographing men or children or whatever. The composition and the cropping of your image can make a big difference to your final result. And I think it's an essential skill for the portrait model photographer. I'm going to explain to you why. Like most photography education, these are generalizations. These are guidelines or rules that I've used over the years to create my own images. So you can take them on or not, but please have a look and listen to the reasons why I crop my images in these particular ways. If you've got a lot of megapixels to play with, you can crop later. I prefer to crop in camera because I don't have a lot of megapixels to play with, but cropping in camera is a better way to go, I think, because if you start cropping later on in post-production, even to take 10% of the outside of your image to crop your image in a bit closer, takes about half of the pixels that you have in your image. So you're reducing your resolution down a lot by not cropping in camera. Fair enough, you can crop a little bit loosely, so you can just tweak it a little bit, but don't think that you can shoot a full-length shot of everybody and then crop into a headshot all the time. It just doesn't work, and it's not a really practical way to work either. So here are a few images and the reasons why I crop them the way I do. So we've got a full-length shot here of Danielle. Obviously a full-length shot, we want to include her head, we want to include her feet in the shot, so there it is. There's not a lot of variation you can do with a full-length shot. When we're cropping to 3/4 length, down to around her knee area, I don't particularly want to crop below her knee, because even though Danielle probably has really nice knees, they are a bit bumpy. Everybody's knees are a little bit bumpy. So because they're bumpy and they're on the edge of that frame, if you crop below them, they attract more attention. So I try and crop just above the knee so that I've got that smooth skin of her thigh in the bottom of the image, and the attention is not taken away from her face by those bumpy knees. When I'm cropping half length, I don't particularly want to crop at her waist, because if I crop at her waist, it gives her that triangular masculine sort of a shape with the wider shoulders and the narrow waist. I like to crop her at the hips, so it gives a more feminine sort of a shape to the image, and to me it looks much more attractive that way. When I'm doing a headshot, I don't really want to crop her just under her chin, for a few reasons. The first one is that it's very close. The composition doesn't look particularly good because her eyes are in the middle of the frame or close to it. Any time that your subject's eyes are in the middle of the frame, it tends to look a bit boring and a bit unattractive. So I much prefer to crop a headshot down at the bottom of her ribs so that we've got her head or her eyes higher in the frame, and that makes the shot look so much better. When I'm doing a headshot also, occasionally I will chop the top of her head off. The reason I do that is simply because I'm getting her eyes higher in the frame. The higher her eyes are in the frame, the more impact they have. You'll notice this in a lot of magazines, particularly perfume, makeup ads. The model's head has been cropped down so that those eyes are higher in the frame. It gives your shot a lot more grabbing attention, and it gives it more impact. So have a go at that. I wouldn't do it with every image, but just that one thing can make a difference. Also, if your model or your subject is looking a particular way, try to leave a bit more space in front of her face rather than behind. The area behind her head is pretty much lost and it looks a bit of a waste, but if you give her room to look into or to move into, it looks much more acceptable for the viewer. So have a go at those cropping guidelines, see if it makes a difference. You've heard the reasons why I do it. You can make your own choices. Now, this is a traditional sort of way of doing things. I know I'm an old man, so tradition means a lot to me. You can experiment. You can do whatever you want with your compositions, as long as it's done for a reason and it's done for the benefit of the image. So get your shots, get your standard shots, and then play around with your compositions, play around with your cropping, and see the final results that you can do. I'm looking to put together an image that talks about the power of cropping an image, because often you can make 3 or 4 different compositions with the one particular image. So keep an eye out for that in the future.